Hi, everyone. My name is Sam. I'm from Reborn. We are a nonprofit that offers a wide variety of services for mental health with a focus on suicide. Today, we're going to be speaking with Hannah Berner, star of Bravo TV's Summer House, and also the host of podcast Burning in Hell, where she interviews guests about their insecurities and anxieties. We're just going to start with a nice mental check-in. So, how are you today?
I think I'm doing okay. I've been sleeping a lot, and living with my parents. So, I'm dealing with the judgment of my parents being like, why are you napping? You just woke up. But then I'm dealing with, I want to nap because I feel like it. Because the world is scary right now, and sometimes a little sleep makes me feel better. So, we're 3 months in. I've been living with them for 3 months, and I've gotten into a pretty good routine, and I'm living with my cat. We have a lot of cats. And I'm gonna fucking kill her. Oh my God, sorry for cursing. Butter! She's being crazy. Okay, I swear I do a ton of interviews, and she never does this.
Okay.
I've had different phases of quarantine. I also think that I actually just reached out to a therapist today because I haven't been talking to a therapist, and I just decided I've been telling my mom I'm going to go back to therapy, but finding a therapist has been so weird. Do I just reach out to someone online who says they focus on things I think I have issues with? But finally I just online, when I was doing an Instagram live, mentioned I wanted to see a therapist again, and someone sent me a recommendation. So that's where I am mentally right now.
That is awesome. You have a fan base that is we care about you. We will send you a therapist.
Literally, I had 5 people be like, this is why I love her. She's helped me. So, but I feel having a personal recommendation is great. And I think there is a flaw in the system of finding therapists.
Yeah.
And it's because it's super such a personal thing, but you're just going on old websites of therapists that I don't know, and then it's dating, trying to find the right one, and it's really a nightmare. So I've been procrastinating, honestly, from going back to therapy, not because I don't want therapy, but because I was just scared of the stress of having to put myself out there with people who might not be the right therapist for me.
Exactly. It's finding the right fit, but when you do, it's perfect. But also kudos to you for realizing I need help and I'm seeking it out. But one of the things you mentioned was your new quarantine routine. So is there anything that you've started, or hobbies or recipes or workouts that you've done during this time?
Well, I started playing tennis again because I'm out in Long Island.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a tennis court in the neighborhood, and I've been hitting again. And tennis used to be a very intense, almost volatile / abusive part of my life, because it's something that I played from competitively from 8 to 22. And I had to after I retired from it, I spent time away from it, and now I'm reestablishing my relationship with something that I love to do, but has been corrupted by some experiences or people involved in the sport and my own, anxiety with the sport. So I realized I love playing games and playing sports more than a YouTube tutorial trying to work out. I realize I have no self-discipline when it comes to just watching a girl on YouTube work out. I give up, I half-ass it, and I'm trying to find, not what society says you should do for self-care, but what I specifically enjoy most for self-care.
Yes. That's awesome. Don't worry about what other people are doing. I'm going to do what's best for me. So Hannah, you mentioned that you're with your family right now. How has that been with your family and taking a break from everyone and your busy paced lifestyle?
I have a very close relationship with my parents, and people think I'm crazy for living with them for 3 months, but I love them so much. I joke that it's given me a refresh on what I should bring up in therapy, which partially it has, just because you're in that family dynamic again, but then you realize I'm a different person now. if there's like a confrontation, you're like, or someone says something to you, you're like, oh, I'm not that little girl that just believes that, or like, oh, I see that my parents as humans now, and it's because of like they're dealing with their own issues, and I'm not going to internalize it. I think that I've also realized though how much I took living in my own space for granted, and that I felt a lot of guilt that like, oh, I want to spend alone time without my parents today because I love them so much and they love spending time with me. But sometimes like independence is super, super healthy. And even if I'm doing the same thing I would do if they were in the house, it took me a long time. Again, as a tennis player, I was always told like what to do, when to do it, how I'm feeling, and this is my schedule. So it took me a while to like think my own thoughts and be confident in my own schedule that I decided on. So now that I'm back on my parents' schedule, like it's easy to me, but I also am like, oh, I took for granted when I finally found my independence. Like I finally, like my dream was to get a studio apartment in New York City with a cat, and I like finally got that. Like I was like making enough money to do it. I felt responsible enough to get a cat, and then after a year the pandemic hit, and now I'm like, oh, I miss waking up and just being like I can do whatever I want today. But so there's pros and cons.
Yeah, that segues into perfectly our next question, talking about like pros and cons. So the positives and negatives of quarantine. If you could list a couple positives and a couple negatives during quarantine, what would they be? You've mentioned some realizations, but maybe go into.
I think overall, I used to like have social anxiety, but I didn't know social anxiety. I just like, I always feel like I have to be the funniest, like loudest, most entertaining person in the room because like I can. It's like a skill. Like my dad is the kind of person, he can light up any room if he chooses to, and like I love making people smile, but it also is exhausting. So I would like avoid like parties and like not really hang out with friends if I didn't want to because I felt like it was like so draining. And that's also me working on why do you need to be liked by performing for people? Like why can't you just be you? And but I realized as a, like especially as a tennis player, I love being alone. And at first I thought it was lame that I like being alone a lot, but then I realized like, oh no, that's you. You're outgoing, but you also need your alone time to like refuel. And I think with quarantine, it's like such a terrible, terrible time, but in terms of like people are getting very sick and people are dying and it's so scary, but like I actually love that I don't have to socialize all the time. It's exhausting to me sometimes, and I've like really enjoyed it a little too much, kind of waking up and not, especially also since I've gotten on TV, I felt like it took like about a year, and then as I got more momentum, I started being pulled in so many directions of like friends who were like friends that wanted to hang out, or like brands that wanted me to go to events, and like some people love that life, but I just felt like I was disappointing all these people if I didn't go. And then you get asked to do things all the time, then you just feel like I'm just disappointing all these people because I don't want to go to all these things because you actually can't. So quarantine has given me this piece of like, no one else is doing anything, you're not doing anything. You don't have to worry about people getting ahead of you like in the stand-up world because they're like traveling, doing tons of shows, like it's done. But then to the cons, it's like, I just launched my first stand-up comedy tour.
Gosh, congratulations.
Thank you. And I was in LA March 5th and in San Francisco March 9th. And that's when it like hit New York. And well, now we know it was probably everywhere at the time. But then everything closed down, the NBA closed down, everything shut down. And I was supposed to like be during this time touring for the first time. So part of it sucked, but then I was like, I have so much time in my life, you know, knock on wood, to do that. This is now a time for me to like work on some other things. But also at the same time, I immediately was like, okay, don't turn into a cycle. Like there were all these quotes going around like Shakespeare wrote his first, you know, or wrote like a whole play, and someone wrote this novel and whatever during the whatever pandemic they were having. And I'm like, no, you don't have to fucking like write a fucking, you know, thesis on something and solve the world's problems. You can just like focus on your mental health and see how you're doing. So the pros is that like I love the alone time and stuff, but the cons is like you feel this tension of like, should I be doing more or less? But really we're all kind of just in the same trapped situation.
Exactly. One of the things that I thought was so interesting that you mentioned, it was your mental health in television. When you were, you're on Summer House, how has your mental health been affected since being a public figure?
Oh my gosh. I joke that like by the end of every season my mental health is shot. What I love about it is it really is this like mental warfare of like chess on television, because you're basically putting your reputation on the line, and when people are like coming at you, they're like basically trying to make you look bad on national TV and not like as a character, like as your life. And it I think that I wouldn't have been able to do the show if I was like 23 or 24, because I really didn't know who I was at that time. And I don't mean like I really know who I am now, but you have to go through enough kind of hurdles and obstacles to feel like I've lost myself, and then I've come back, and I basically realized after a pretty bad breakup, it wasn't really about the guy, it was more like, when a breakup brings up like all these things that you were just holding down. So
Yeah.
25, I had the worst fucking breakup where I felt like, sorry, I'm cursing. You guys can bleep it out.
Okay.
It's part of my passion. It's part of me expressing myself. It's an art. And I basically felt like I was kind of dating a narcissist, and I feel like people don't talk about, dating narcissistic abuse enough, because it's mental, it's not physical. So you get confused, especially as someone who's dealt with a lot of like emotional abuse with sports that I was told is like just good coaching. It was hard for me to see. And then once I got out, like I felt empty. I felt like I lost myself. I didn't know who I was. Like, and then I slowly started to rebuild myself. And that's when I was like, I'm just doing what I want. Like, I want to get into video. All I want every day is just to wake up and not be depressed. And that's like, once that was my only goal in life, things just started to happen for me. Like before I was like, I want to be famous, or I want to win the US Open, or and then I literally was like, I just want to wake up and feel like myself and not be depressed. And once that was my only goal, like my path just started to like happen. I started to just do things that I like to do. And then I think with Summer House, I was like, I know who I am. Regardless of what happens, I'm just going to be myself. There'll be ups and downs, but at least I know like what I stand for and who I am. But if I was 23, it would have been a mess. It would have been Michigas.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like to call it dysfunctional drunk group therapy. That's what Summer House is.
Speaking of Summer House, have you been keeping in touch with your castmates during this time and seeing how they're doing?
I do. I mean, it's funny. If we're gonna film in the summertime, like we have this, it's like we spend all summer together, we get really close, and then right after summer, I feel like we all need a break from each other because it's been like so much. And then normally during the winter, we start hanging out again. And then right before summer, it gets kind of quiet because we know we're about to like be so sick of each other soon. So it's been like kind of quiet. I'm very close with Paige and Amanda. I talk with them. I talk with Paige every night. We actually have a project that has kept me sane during quarantine called Giggly Squad, which is Kyle, like the first episode of the last season on Summer House, called us the Giggly Squad because we were like giggling during a serious speech that he was having. And we got into a big fight because of it. Not because he called us Giggly Squad, but because of the situation. Mm-hmm. And then I kind of took the concept of Giggly Squad and I was like, let's make it a thing. And every night we've been doing an Instagram live like since March. We have a couple days off here and there, but it's really been every night. And we've created this community of people who like, we're all stuck on our phones alone in bed at 10 p.m. And I was like, what if they can watch us just like be friends and talk shit and make fun of things? And that's kind of helped keep me sane because it gave me a new project that was really like quarantine focused. And it's been really fun. So Paige has actually been a big part of why my quarantine's been more fun.
Aww.
I know. I was actually watching your Instagram live last night, and I was laughing at you too because you two were you're so funny. And I remember I was sitting there, and I was like, "Oh my god, we talk to each other tomorrow." But I was laughing because you guys were like, I think, like making fun of
who knows?
Someone. And I was like,
it bops around. But I do think that you think of reality TV, and a lot of people like want to go on TV to show that they're like aspirational or amazing, or like I'm better than people because I'm on TV. And I was like, if I go on TV, I'm strong enough where I feel like can be that voice to be like, I'm normal. Like I deal with anxiety, I deal with depression. And like, if I can help one person by being imperfect on TV, then that makes me happy and takes so much more pressure off my shoulders. Mm-hmm. And I do think that people don't see a friendship like me and Paige that's like that real, that like you're watching us on TV and then we're like, come on Instagram stories, like we're exactly the same, be a part of it. So when friendships are so much more complex than like a lot the media makes it seem, like you either like love each other or you're frenemies, and it's like Paige and I have been through a lot, and we have this great complex friendship of a lot of things, and I think a lot of girls have felt less alone, hopefully, just feeling like they can hang out with us.
Yeah, I definitely sometimes I watch your Instagram lives because like at 10:30 or 10 o'clock at night I'm bored and I'm just like, my friends are quarantining as well, so I'm like, I might as well watch them because like
like I'm sick of FaceTiming my friends.
I'm basically just watching, and I'm like, it's just so funny because like you said, like I can genuinely tell you guys are friends. Like it's not like how I feel like you watch some reality TV shows and like you can kind of tell it's like for the camera kind of thing. Mm-hmm. I genuinely, because you act like how me and my best friends act, so it's like comforting to see that, and I'm like, oh, others are like us. It's fun.
And going on with saying, Sam, it's just so refreshing to see, you know, public figures actually be themselves and owning up to being, you know, flawed and just being human. Because I think our generation is tired of seeing perfection or trying to achieve perfection and just wanting to see the real, the raw. So my question for you is like, how has, you know, when you're in Summer House or when you're just in the public figure eye, what is like your goal with your audience? Because it's like you obviously have a fan base. So what is your goal whenever you're, you know, on Instagram Live or just doing things like this, like your motivation behind it?
Great question. I used to be private on Instagram. I started working for this. I was in sales and marketing, and then I had like an epiphany, like I just want to do video. I don't know what it's going to be, but I really manifested like video. I don't know. I just need to get in that creative place, and I wanted to be successful. Like I wanted to make money, but then like at some point money you realize is not going to like fill that like emptiness of passion. And I ended up getting a basically freelance job with this company Betches. And I just started to work and create content for them. And I guess people started to connect with like my voice a little. I would like do funny Insta stories and funny videos. So then I went off private, and then I started tweeting, which is basically like writing jokes. And I started tweeting, and Betches had a thing where they were like, they wouldn't repost like their own people because they didn't want like, I don't know, weird tension within the company, but like other meme pages were reposting me. And I started to just grow as this like meme page. And I kind of would explain my brand as like female locker room talk. Like I love getting reactions out of people. I love saying things that they wouldn't expect me to say. And I would talk about like farting. I talk about eating. I would objectify men because I thought it was funny. I would just say everything I felt like every girl was thinking, but society didn't want them to say. And then I got on Summer House, and then I realized that's when the idea for Burning in Hell came, because I realized that people are going to see me through this lens of Summer House. And someone said a very cool thing to me, a lawyer once who knows a lot about reality TV, was like, whatever you do, either have them love you or hate you. Don't be just like, oh yeah, Hannah, she was fine. Because he's like, because the ones that love you, you can then like have a lifetime of connection with. So I was like, for the people who love me, I want them to be able to have a podcast where they can really see how my brain works. And at the time working at Betches, I was interviewing like celebrities and real reality TV people, singers, and they were so cool to me. I was like, they're rich, they're famous, they don't have a 9 to 5. But meeting them, so many of them were like I could tell as like an empathic person, like struggling with stuff. And then I was like, I have to start a podcast where I talk to people that other people look up to and just like ask them like their biggest insecurities, their biggest fears, what keeps them up at night, what they hate about themselves, their regrets. And I started to, it's crazy because you said, back to your original question was like, what's your goal when you're on Instagram? It's never been one thing, but I've somehow created this community of like very similar women who like, they're all funnier than me. They all are so witty. They're all just like cool and don't take themselves too seriously. And it's crazy how these people have found me when I haven't purposely in like one strategic way been like, I want to attract these kind of people. But I think it's like, I post crazy cat content. I try to make cat ladies cool again. I post tons of tweets about like farting and and I post funny videos, and I think I've just been like authentic. I think being genuine is the way that you get seen creatively and like get attention and admired, because whatever you do, if you're just yourself, it's the most unique you could be. And people, but the same with friendships, like once I started being more authentically myself, I started authentically connecting with people more. So that's how I think I've been able to connect with people on Instagram, by just being raw and like not in a cookie cutter like strategy or what people have done before and trying to copy it.
Yeah, I think it definitely shows, because like I obviously I follow your Instagram because like I've seen your stories, and I definitely see that like I feel like I connect more because it's genuine. I can tell it's not fake, and I can tell that like your stuff that you're posting is like genuinely really funny.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And you're like very similar to like a lot of the girls who I think who follow me, as in like you have awareness, you're smart, you're funny, and you don't just want to be like lied to on social media.
Oh yeah, no. I'm like, I want the real stuff, but like half the stuff you like tweet, like it's like what everyone's thinking, and I'm like, yes.
I feel like my followers, the kind of girls, like if someone does something super fake, like I could look across the room at them and be like,
because,
and
like,
they would get it. Exactly. Exactly. But I also, I don't edit my photos. I like to put like a Hooji filter sometime because I think it's like vintage looking, but like I've never manipulated my face or my body. And that's not even for, it's not like even for my followers. It's for me. I like to say like, I don't edit my photos because I don't want to hate myself in real life. Like I don't want to live this lie where it's you that has to look in the mirror ultimately, that you can't edit. So it's like, also during quarantine, I feel like so many people haven't been wearing makeup, and I like to explain it as like doing your nails. Like if you always have your nails done and then you take your nail polish off, your nails look fucking weird. But if you never have your nails done, you're like, these are my nails. And I think that's the same with makeup, where like you start getting used to how your face looks without makeup, and you start being like, I like that girl. And yeah, and I think that it's been really healthy for some girls to realize like how much crazy effort they've been putting to like look hot, when it's like you don't need it. And I mean, granted, like I should shave my legs more just out of like hygiene, but yeah, but I think that it's gonna change our culture hopefully a little bit, to show girls like you don't have to get hair extensions every 3 months. You don't have to like fucking get Botox every 2 seconds. Like you're good. Like you're good. No one hates you.
Yeah, exactly. I definitely hope that like what you're saying like carries over into like how people are gonna be thinking of themselves.
Yeah.
Just it's so refreshing to hear from someone who is in the public eye and is like, you don't need this, just be yourself. It's okay to be weird and be multifaceted. So I wish you were someone I had growing up that wasn't cookie cutter and perfect, because I'm like, oh yeah, having 7 cats is totally cool. Or, posting memes or just being yourself is totally acceptable. So I think our last question we want to wrap up with, Hannah, is, since we are a mental health organization, what would you give advice to someone who is struggling with fear, depression, or anxiety right now?
I think it's important to remember that our brains are never stagnant. Like life will never stay the same. It's always changing. So like even when I'm in like a really dark place, I like think of a past in my life and I know like it comes in waves. I used to like always tell myself when something bad would happen, I'd be like, it means something good's gonna happen. Like it really is about that hope. I think my biggest change in my life was realizing that the voices in your head are ultimately like who you are. And I used to like put out a really confident front and like use humor to overcome stuff, but like the voices in my head were really negative and it really affected everything around me. And then once I realized that like the voices in your head actually aren't you, they're like an annoying roommate that you can either like tell to shut the fuck up or shut up, or hang out with them and get toxic with them and go down that bad path with them. So once you realize the negative voices aren't you, it's your anxiety, it's, you know, maybe your parents being negative to you or coaches or friends or bullies. So once you can learn how to control the conversation in your brain, the world is at your fingertips. And I know that sounds crazy, but it's like once you change how you think, everything changes for you.
Exactly. Hannah, thank you so much for coming on this Zoom campaign and just talking to us. And I feel like I've gained a new friend, honestly.
Oh, no, thank you so much for having me. Talking about mental health is like my favorite thing to do. I talk about it for hours. So when I heard about what you guys are doing with Reborn, I was just like, yes, book that. I want to be a part of it. So keep me in mind for any like future events or things you guys are doing because I'd love to help.
Oh, thank you. And we will include all of Hannah's socials and keep up with her podcast, Burning in Hell, because I've listened to it and it is the truth. And
Thank you.
Love hearing it. But on behalf of Reborn, thank you so much. And we look forward to our next interview, which will be coming real soon. All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye.